The room was thick with anticipation, a low murmur of voices mixing with the rustle of papers. The scent of old wood and leather-bound books hung in the air, the kind of smell that clings to rooms steeped in history. My family was gathered around, their faces carefully composed, though their eyes betrayed their impatience. The lawyer, an older man with glasses perched precariously on his nose, adjusted his papers before beginning the formalities of the will reading. It felt like a performance, something rehearsed, though no one would admit it. This was more than just the passing of an estate, it was an unspoken ritual. A moment where power and privilege were redefined, where the voices that mattered were heard and the others were forgotten. I sat there, hands clasped in my lap, trying to remain composed. The room was filled with distant relatives, their laughter and chatter floating around like background noise. It was all too familiar, the feeling of being just another face in the crowd, a nameless figure who had never quite earned a place at the table. My heart beat just a little faster with each name that was read aloud, knowing that when mine came, it would be just another moment in a long line of dismissals. The weight of their mockery pressed down on me, heavier than any physical burden. I could almost hear their thoughts, see the way they glanced at each other with smirks. The usual warmth I had hoped to find in this family, an imagined warmth, had long since turned to coldness. I had spent so many years pretending it didn't bother me, convincing myself that it was just the way things were, that they were just playing around. But as I sat there, listening to the lawyer's voice drone on, it was impossible to ignore how much it had hurt. The flashes of memories came. Those family gatherings I had been invited to, only to be ignored or pushed aside when the conversation turned to things that mattered. The laughter, the inside jokes, the moments when I would sit at the edge of the table, pretending not to care as I watched them bond over stories I was never a part of. It had always been like this. I remember the birthdays I had spent alone, the Christmases where I had received the obligatory gift that no one had really put thought into. I remember the glances, the little comments that were meant to sting, but never quite hit their mark. Until today. Today, as my name was mentioned, the sting was finally sharp enough to feel. This wasn't just a joke. It wasn't just some light-hearted teasing. This was their way of reminding me that I would never fit into their world, their expectations. I was the outsider, the one who would always be on the periphery, never fully included in the center of their lives. The discomfort of their mockery crept up my spine, a cold sweat prickling at the back of my neck. I fought to keep my expression neutral, my heart racing in my chest, but inside, a quiet anger was bubbling up. It wasn't the laughter itself that stung. It was the realization that I had been here before, time and time again, the outsider, the forgotten one, the punchline to a joke I never understood. And yet, something was shifting. I wasn't sure what it was yet, but as the laughter continued to fade into the background, I could feel the smallest spark of something else growing in me, a sense of clarity. I wasn't just here to endure their mockery. There was something else I had to do, something that had been simmering quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment. I wasn't sure what that moment was just yet, but I could feel it coming, pulling me forward. It's strange how a single moment can pull you back, like a tidal wave crashing over you, dragging you beneath the surface of memories you thought you'd buried. As I sit there, listening to the lawyer's voice hum in the background, I feel it. This sudden flood of recollections I can't seem to escape. I was a child then, younger, more naive. I had always believed that one day I'd be different, that someday I wouldn't be the forgotten one. But the truth never quite felt that way. I remember my birthdays the clearest. They were always quiet, so quiet it felt like the house itself was holding its breath. While my siblings played, laughing and running around in the living room. I would sit alone in my room. No one ever came to check on me. The sound of their joy would drift down the hallway, muffled by the heavy door I shut between myself and the world. I'd look at the gifts left on my bed, wrapped in paper, bright colors that promised something I would never truly feel. It was like a cruel joke. Presents for a celebration, but no one to celebrate with. I can almost hear the clink of silverware in the dining room during those silent dinners. My father would sit at the head of the table, his eyes never meeting mine. He would eat, nodding at my siblings, his gaze lingering on them as if they were the only ones who existed. They were always the shining stars, successful, outgoing, full of the praise that he never seemed to have the time or energy to share with me. I was just there, a shadow in a room full of people who were never quite willing to look in my direction. It wasn't that they outright rejected me. No, it was much subtler than that. It was in the silence, the unspoken acknowledgement that I wasn't enough, that I'd never be enough to earn their approval. They didn't need to say it. It was there, in the way they laughed at jokes I didn't get, in the way they made plans I was never invited to. It was in the way my father never asked about my day, never wondered what I thought, or how I felt. It was in the way they lived their lives in full color while mine was always in grayscale. I can feel the weight of those memories pressing in on me now, as I sit in this room, surrounded by the very people who had written me off. The discomfort I felt growing up, the quiet ache of being overlooked, it has never really gone away. I used to think it would, that maybe one day I would find a way out of their shadow, a way to escape the constant weight of their judgment. But sitting here now, with their laughter still echoing in my ears, it's clear that it's inescapable. I had always thought I could run from it, escape it, bury it deep. But the truth is, it's been with me all along. A part of me I can never outrun, a feeling I'll never quite be able to shake. And yet, there's something stirring beneath the surface, something shifting inside me. The weight of those years, the quiet moments of neglect. They've shaped me, yes, but they don't define me. Not anymore. The air in the room was thick with discomfort, the low murmur of voices barely cutting through the dense silence. The lawyer's voice had been steady, mechanical, as he read through clause after clause, each one more dismissive than the last. I could feel my stomach tightening with every word. It was as though the pages he flipped through were my life, a life I had lived on the edge of their attention, on the outskirts of their affection. I'd always known that my place in the family would never be the same as theirs. I had been the quiet one, the forgotten one, the afterthought. The will was just another reminder that my worth was measured by their standards, by things I could never achieve, by a life that was never quite enough for them. Each clause was a punch to the gut, each line telling me, without saying it directly, that I had never mattered. But then, just as the lawyer finished reading the last line of the document, a pause stretched out in the room. It was brief, a fraction of a second, but it felt like an eternity. He cleared his throat and glanced up, then back down at the papers. "There's one more," he said, his tone flat but with an edge of something different. I couldn't breathe for a moment. My heart thudded in my chest, too loud, too fast. The family had started whispering among themselves, not even bothering to hide their disinterest. They were already dismissing everything that had come before. They hadn't expected anything significant, not after everything they'd heard. They were ready to move on, to claim their so-called inheritance, to laugh it off and forget about me. But in that fleeting silence, my pulse quickened. A tiny, unexpected hope flickered in my chest, small and fragile like a spark of light in a dark room. Maybe this would be different. Maybe, Just maybe this final clause would be something I hadn't prepared for. I held my breath, my mind racing. For the first time, I wasn't sure what was about to happen. I hadn't been prepared for any of this, for the years of being overlooked, for the years of living in their shadow. But now, as the lawyer began reading again, my attention sharpened, and my heart beat harder against my ribs. There was a shift in the air. Something was about to change. I didn't know if it would be for better or worse. But in that moment, I finally felt like I had something to hold on to. The air in the room thickens, heavy with anticipation, as the lawyer clears his throat again. His voice, usually so monotone and detached, suddenly holds a quiet weight. To my protagonist, I leave the property that has been kept hidden. It was never meant for anyone else. The rest of you are given what I feel you deserve. The words hang in the air like a sharp breath, suspended for what feels like an eternity. The world slows, the steady ticking of the clock on the wall, the murmur of my family's whispers, all fading into the background. It's just me, the lawyer's voice, and the echo of the words bouncing around in my head. My heart stops, then starts again, faster, as though it too is trying to catch up to the sudden rush of disbelief that fills me. I look around the room, their faces, faces that moments ago were filled with smug satisfaction, impatience, and the kind of entitlement that had defined my entire existence with this family, have all fallen. The room is silent, not even a cough to break it. They stare, wide-eyed and stunned, as if the very floor beneath them had shifted without warning. Their confident smiles crumble, replaced by expressions of confusion, anger, and fear. The realization settles like a weight in the air. This was never part of their plan. They had assumed, just like I had, that this would be another moment of defeat for me. Another reminder that I was nothing to them. Another opportunity for them to claim their stake in the family legacy. But now, as their eyes dart between the lawyer and me, I can see it clearly. They had never expected me to be included. They had never expected me to be anything more than the invisible one. I should feel victorious, right? This is the moment I've been waiting for. I should feel like I've won something. But the truth is, I don't know what I feel. Is it relief? Or is it shock? Maybe it's confusion. Or perhaps it's a little of all of those. This sudden turn of events is too much, too fast. It's as if I've been given something I never asked for and didn't know how to accept. But then, as I look around the room, at their faces that have shifted from mockery to vulnerability, something inside me clicks. This is my moment. It's not about the property, the money, or the assets. It's about the truth. The truth that this family, my family, had always underestimated me. And now, as their complacency falters, I realize that the power was never in what they gave me. It was in what they had kept from me all along. I can feel the tremor in my hands, the tightness in my chest, and yet there's a sense of clarity that rises within me. This was never about revenge. Not really. It was about taking back the space I had been denied for so long. It was about standing up and saying, I am here. I matter. The silence drags on, but for the first time, I'm no longer afraid of it. Because this time, it's my silence. And it's my turn to speak. The room is frozen in place, an eerie stillness that suffocates every breath. The lawyer's voice, once so matter-of-fact, now sounds almost too loud in the silence. He explains calmly and without emotion that the property was set aside for me, hidden away by Grandpa, never meant for anyone else. The words swirl in my mind, the significance of it all too large to grasp fully. Your grandfather, the lawyer continues, left this specifically for you. It was never intended for distribution. The rest of the family, well, they are entitled to what he felt they deserved, But this, he pauses, glancing at me, and then back to the documents in his hands. This was for you, and only you. The weight of it presses on me, heavy and suffocating. 1,000 thoughts rush through my head, but all of them feel jumbled, tangled in the confusion of what's happening. This wasn't just about property, it was about something deeper. Grandpa had known. He had known all along. He had seen the way I was treated, how I was always overlooked, always forgotten. And in a moment that feels so far removed from everything I thought I knew, he had chosen me. I glance around the room. The others, who had been so certain moments before, now sit motionless. They don't know what to do with the truth. Their faces are pale, their eyes wide, as if they're seeing me for the first time. They don't understand what Grandpa's decision means, but I do. They can't take this from me. Not now. Not ever. The laughter that had once filled the air, mocking and dismissive, seems like a distant memory, a relic of a time I can hardly recognize anymore. The ridicule I endured, those years of silence and judgment, feel like something that belongs to someone else, someone I used to be. The sting of their cruelty is still there, but it no longer defines me. What hurts now is the quiet in the room. The weight of the silence is different from before. It's not the casual dismissal I had grown used to, but something deeper, something heavier. The guilt on their faces is palpable. I can almost feel the shift in the air as they realize what this means. Not just for me, but for them. Grandpa's final gesture wasn't just a gift, it was a declaration. A fine dynamics have shifted. I no longer feel like the invisible one, the small one, the one who has to fight for every scrap of recognition. I can feel it in the air, this subtle shift that makes me realize I no longer care about their approval. I no longer need to be part of their world. The silence stretches between us, thick and heavy, but this time it's not uncomfortable. It's freeing. I've spent years in their shadow, but now, for the first time, I can see the light. And I'm walking toward it, leaving them behind. They're still wrapped up in their own world of entitlement, but I've found a new one for myself, a world where I am enough, where I am seen. And as their anger and resentment boil just below the surface, I realize something else. This is the moment I've been waiting for. The moment when I finally reclaim myself. When I stop letting them define who I am. As I step out of the room, the heavy doors swinging shut behind me, a quiet sense of victory settles over me. No cheers, no applause, no one to congratulate me, and that's exactly how I want it. There's no need to boast, no desire to confront them. Not now. This moment doesn't need the hollow validation of voices behind me fading into the distance. I realize something else. The years I spent feeling unworthy, chasing after approval, trying to earn a place in their world, it was all for nothing. I don't need to fit into their narrative, to seek their acknowledgement. I never did. The truth, the one I've been denying for so long, has finally sunk in. My worth was never in their hands. It was always mine. It was Dot. I think about the choices I've made, the ones that have brought me to this moment, and I realize something. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their praise. What I needed was to finally see myself, to give myself the same validation I had so desperately sought from them. And in doing that, I've found something far more valuable. My own worth. The decisions I'm making now, the ones that will shape my future, are my own. No longer swayed by their opinions, no longer held back by their judgments. The path ahead is mine to walk, and for the first time, I don't feel the need to justify it to anyone. As I stand by the door, the wind pushing it open just enough to let a breath of fresh air in, I realize that I've come further than I ever thought possible. From that child, who felt invisible, to the adult who now stands tall, unshaken by the opinions of those who never truly understood me. It's a long journey, and for the first time, I'm proud of where I've ended up. Standing here, on the land Grandpa left me, I can feel the weight of everything lifting. The space is quiet, so quiet, in fact, that it's almost as if the world itself is holding its breath. The air smells of earth and fresh grass, the breeze rustling through the trees, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers. It's peaceful here, this stretch of land that once felt so foreign to me, now mine in a way I can't quite put into words. I stand at the edge of the small clearing, looking out over the stretch of land Grandpa worked so hard to preserve. It's all so simple, so unpretentious. There's no grandeur to it, just a quiet sort of strength, grounded in the soil, the roots that run deep beneath the surface. And for the first time, I feel a sense of belonging that I never thought possible. The judgment, the ridicule, the years of trying to fit into a family that never saw me, all of that feels distant now. The laughter that once stung, the comments that always made me feel small, they don't matter anymore. I don't carry their weight any longer. I've stepped away from their world and into my own. I remember the last time I felt truly invisible, sitting at family gatherings, feeling like a ghost in the room. My siblings, my parents, all of them lost in their own worlds, their attention never lingering on me, their words never meant for me. Back then, I thought if I could just prove myself enough, they'd see me. They'd finally recognize my worth. But now I see the futility in that. I don't need them to see me. I don't need their approval. The land beneath my feet, the very ground that Grandpa once walked, has become my foundation. It's not the property or the wealth that matters. It's the symbolism of it all, the quiet strength, the legacy that was always meant to be mine, even when they laughed at it. Grandpa's vision wasn't about riches or status. It was about the lasting imprint he wanted to leave behind. And now, it's mine to carry forward. I think of how many years I spent chasing their validation, bending myself to fit into their narrow view of who I should be. How many moments did I waste trying to prove my worth to people who never truly understood me? But now, standing here, in the stillness of this land, I realize the truth. I was never meant to fit into their world. I was always meant to create my own. There's a quiet pride settling in my chest. It's not boastful, not the kind that shouts for attention, but a quiet, unshakable confidence. I am enough, just as I am. I've always been enough. And for the first time, I don't need their approval to know that. The wind picks up again, brushing against my face, and I close my eyes for a moment, taking it all in. The stillness, the peace, the sense of finally being at home. Not in their world, but in mine. The release isn't just from their judgments, it's from the need to seek their approval at all. I'm free from that now. I take one last look at the land, feeling the weight of the past slip away, and turn towards the path ahead. The future feels open, unmarked by anyone's expectations but my own. And with that, I step forward, carrying with me a legacy that is no longer a burden, but a gift. A foundation to build something lasting, something truly mine.